2018 highlighted that MSMEs in Fiji contributed to 18% of GDP and 16% of total employment. In conclusion, I'd like to highlight that based on the national baseline that I have just mentioned, if we want to come out of this emergency with a COVID-safe recovery and resilience, it's critically urgent to immediately find business-enabling solutions to the challenges faced by all micro and small enterprises, including the informal sector. I therefore congratulate the Minister of Commerce, Trade, Tourism and Transport and Fiji Commerce and Employees Federation for taking lead on organizing these consultations. This is a good step towards the right direction, and ILO, including the UN partners under the UN Joint Informal Sector Recovery Project, is happy to support this event. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Martin, the Director ILO. I'm now going to open the floor for contributions, and we have a different format today. In the true style of the private sector, they have disrupted the program proposed, and they've come up with a better, more effective structure to contribute to this consultation. So there are about 9 groups that are contributing, and we'll have got 13 speakers from the 9 groups. They have been put in sequence, and I'll open this up to the groups to provide their contributions. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Can you all hear me? I think I'm first up. Everybody's just pushed Watson up front to automatically begin the discussions. But thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for this opportunity to allow us to be consulted on the effect of the protocols that are currently that we've currently been phased out by MCTTT, and also the impact that it's currently having and how we're faring along and adjusting to these protocols. Now, my update, first of all, I'd like to give an introduction. My name is Watsoni Nata. I am the chair of the Young Entrepreneurs Council. For those of you that don't know, the Young Entrepreneurs Council is the 9th council under the Fiji Commerce Employers Federation banner. We have currently a strong number of about 40 members from the MSME sector around Fiji and also Envano level. We've also had a lot of interest in joining through our Facebook forums and the feedback that we're getting, but unfortunately, because of COVID, everybody has to reprioritize their money, so the subscription fee is a bit of an issue. I also own and run and operate a little retail business out of Walube, which is called The Merch. Now, just running back on the issue that we need to talk about today is really the protocols. I am supportive of these protocols, but from an MSME perspective, from what I've gathered from my members also, and from general feedback from other SME owners, is the cost of compliance. I know that wouldn't be a surprise to everybody that's tuning in. There are lots of challenges with this, and I would just like to highlight my talk will basically both just surrounding 2 issues. One is just requesting really a legal update on the Public Safe Health Amendment Act that was passed in Parliament last week. Because of the punitive measures it introduces, the penalty of $10,000 and the 5 years imprisonment of both. I really would like an update on that one, but we can probably discuss it in the question and answer section later on, because what this has done also to MSMEs and also other all businesses is the fact that we're pretty anxious with the penalties that's being introduced. And it also allows for the minister to make regulations, introduce regulations on these spot fines. And to my understanding, there hasn't, do correct me if I'm wrong, there hasn't been any introduction or of these regulations. Has been about the minister to introduce these spot fines and compliance and et cetera, under the public health amendment bill that was passed in Parliament last week. So we'll just go over the protocol specifically, the sections or the numbers, specifically these protocols. And I will highlight the actual protocol, the issue that's come about, and also the possible solution that we've that we've suggested. Now, the first non-negotiable protocol, I understand with the amendment, the latest amendment that's on the website, that it applies to all businesses. From my interpretation of the introduction, it says essential businesses, industries that support essential businesses, and then it says other businesses. So, it doesn't specifically state what the definition is of other businesses, but my interpretation of it seems to, and with, the underflowing theme with all the other protocols, it does tie in back to these non-negotiable protocols for every business that wants to operate in this new normal. So the first protocol that I'd like to highlight is the non-negotiable protocol number 4. This is the Fiji Care app and the imposition of the smartphones, and really the onus is both on the employer to provide the smartphones if employees don't have these smartphones, and also to customers that need to equip themselves also with the smartphone. Prior to the protocols being implemented, they had the manual registration system with the books, and then we had to write it up. Because I've been allowed to operate, and I'm very thankful for that during this COVID period as an essential service, we've had to, our security guard at the gate has had to turn away a lot of customers. And from a business standpoint, we've already, decreased considerably in income-wise and revenue-wise. This is further crippling our source of revenue by turning customers away. So our solution to this, what we've come up with, and possibly other members would have solutions to this as well, is to allow for both systems to go ahead. We can have the Fiji Care app with those that have smartphones, but the alternative for those that don't have smartphones, and that's a reality, and then practice on the ground is, I understand the government had come up with the Vodafone offering $89 for a smartphone, but with the hardship and with no money coming in to most of the families in Fiji, $89 is a pretty far off call. So my proposed solution to that is to allow both systems to go side by side. For those that have smartphones, yes, have the Fiji Care app, that's a responsibility. And for those that don't have smartphones, is to allow for the manual registration system to go ahead with the book and pen. And
One
also
more minute,
we need to strengthen that. Oh gosh, if we need to strengthen that, then what we need to do is also ask for ID cards also. And we're holding us to the penalty, so might as well just a little bit of flexibility on that one. So the second one is the non-negotiable protocol number 5, and that is the Care Fiji check-in and the geo-identification indicator. I understand that goes hand in hand with protocol number 4. So if we could possibly be given an update on the development of that, because there's an onus and responsibility on the employer to comply with that section also, and it ties in very well with the faster registration of customers. And I understand that the motivation of it was really to assist with the contact tracing, which is good. So just would like an update from the ministry regarding that specific protocol. Now the next non-negotiable protocol, number 19, is company transportation. For bigger companies with larger employees and that have a fleet of transportation that can carry their customers, their employees from point A to point B and then back. So the onus is on employers to provide this public transportation. And I've understood that the protocols, they've allowed personal vehicles to be used, and that was strict protocols. But I'm lucky enough to have 2 vehicles with my business, but for businesses at the micro level, and at the small level that don't have any vehicles whatsoever, will find that as a problem. This definitely is a problem, because I get these questions every day from my members, and also from micro and small, and those that are in the informal sector as well. And because of the punitive measure of the $10,000 fine, everybody's very anxious in terms of complying. We want to comply, but we've got to be able to be given some sort of breathing space with some alternatives to this. So my solution to that one is also to open up the allowance of the usage of public transportation, because bus companies are supposed to be complying, and also PSV vehicles as well are all supposed to be complying to these protocols. And if they are considered COVID safe, if public transportation can be considered COVID safe if these companies are complying to that. I mean, I'm open to feedback from bus companies and to see how they're faring on with compliance to these protocols as well. So the solution to this, really what we're proposing, is to allow for public transportation for those that cannot or do not have their own company transportation or own personal vehicles to be able to cut their employees to and from work. Yeah,
thank you, Watson. We will need to move on to the next speaker.
I have two more, just very quickly. So the other two protocols are in the special approved businesses protocols, and that's number 5 and number 6. Number 5 involves the testing and the swabbing of employees, and the cost is being placed on the employer. That's a bit of a pressure on micro and small businesses because of the fact, it's another cost measure, and we would, if the Ministry of Health could possibly, if they're coming to do, and there's a need to really swab and test us, whether they could bear that cost or give us assistance in terms of, incentivizing or monetary assistance to be able to cater to that cost. The other protocol also is number 6 of the specially approved business protocols, which it says encouraged to have vaccination. Employers are encouraged, are supposed to encourage their employees to have the vaccination. I understand government, there's just been this memo that's been circulated by FERCA, and they're saying in that memo that sort of make it compulsory for employees to have the vaccination before, as a precondition to contract renewal. Because of the legality involved, and I understand from a human rights perspective that it's a direct breach of the Bill of Rights, and any employee or anybody can take us to court to, and challenge that. And because there isn't so much clarity on the legality and the update of the Public Health Act and its enforcement at the gazetted version also, we're sort of left in the dark as to how this is going to go. And from a human rights perspective, what our solution is to this. Look, for MSMEs, we can't afford lawyers, straight up. That's another added cost. So we can't get lawyers, and you know how lawyers think. They will also look for some loophole in there to try and work a way around it, and that advice is at a cost. Unfortunately, for micro and small businesses, we do not have that money to afford a lawyer. What we want and what we request is that the Ministry of Health, not the Ministry of Health, rather the Ministry of Employment and the Human Rights Commission issue out a statement to let us know what exactly, or give us a clear direction with regard to the vaccination. Because I am very pro-vaccination, and I've been encouraging my employees. Half of them have gotten vaccinated, waiting for their second jab. The other half, a bit, on the fence about it. And the last thing we want is, because I don't want to. What employers are doing now is they're taking advantage of this lull sort of situation, because the enforcement of the bill hasn't really come into force, and there's really there's sort of a gray area in the application of the law. So it would be very good for them to release a statement on it. And the last thing we want is implementing a policy or a contractual provision that's contrary to the law, and having a lawsuit.
Thank you, Chair of IEC. We'll have to stop here, and we'll move on to the speaker. Thank you.
Thanks, Edward. Did you want me to go, or did we lose the time that we had?
Thank you. That was the IEC's time. We're now going to move on to the next group. Elizabeth, over to you.
Okay. Bulavinaka, everybody. By the way, you're all looking protocol proof this afternoon. So my name is Elizabeth. I'm a mother of 9, and myself and my 9 children, we have this small food business going on, which I think belongs in the micro sector. And I'm here as part of the Fiji SME business network. with Kim as my boss on this board. So yes, I was hoping I would be after a few of the bigger brothers and sisters in the room, basically because the protocols that we are discussing here affects them the most, and it's the trickle effect that affects my business. So because the protocols are keeping business owners closed and at home, I am not getting the kind of market that I used to access before. So that is my first issue, market insecurity for micro businesses. In our current situation, we are more dependent on just a few clients, and we are restricted in terms of wanting to diversify our client base. There's hardly any space for that, and not being able to sell means damaged goods, which also means lost income, which also means lost capital for the next day. So micro businesses like ours, right now it's a matter of survival rather than making profit. So in fact, what we envision as a solution to that is probably a lockdown. A lockdown to me means we are it's a step towards normalization. It's a step towards flattening the curve, and flattening the curve means that normalization is just around the corner. And until that, we basically will be operating on a survival mode. That leads me to my second issue. In the businesses of my nature, insufficient capital, insufficient funds. Just like I've explained before, damaged goods means damaged, no income and no capital for the next day, because we take our business day by day. If we had sufficient capital to start with, maybe we would have a longer lifespan in this unforeseen and uncertain market. But and our solution, our proposed solution for that is capital injection or fund subsidy by government. And in that regard, I am lovingly and humbly asking MCTTT as our agent to please consider that. We need some kind of assistance in terms of fund assistance. So like I had mentioned to our group before, I see myself in this room as the baby because of the nature of micro business. And the other small and medium enterprise representatives that are present tonight, how the protocols affect them trickles down and affects me as well, because if they can't employ people, then I can't get my customers. So the sooner we get back to employing people, the sooner micro businesses like mine can manage to get back to making profit instead of just basically hanging on there for survival. So yes, as the baby in the room, I am begging MCTTT and all relevant stakeholders in here to please consider the two solutions that I have offered and probably restore the business sector. Inaka.
Thank you, Elisabetta, for your contribution. I see Semi from the Farmers Group is not online at the moment. I now will invite Nafi from the Disabled Persons Business representative to provide his contribution. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Just a brief introduction of who I am. My name is Nafi, and I run a business online, which is a designing business, which I started probably just last year. I am a quadriplegic. Been a quadriplegic now for 13 years, meaning I'm confined to a wheelchair, and I run a business right here in Fiji. And I'm just here to explain a brief experience on how is it, how does it, sorry, I'm lost words, work when you're a business owner and you're a person with disability. I have a group of persons with disability right here in Fiji that run businesses, and they're actually going through the same issues, same problems. And the issue is there's not enough help being trickled down to persons with disabilities. And the businesses, these are people that are running canteens, sewing, and they're all working from home. And basically what it has gone up to until now is people are to the humanitarian aid model and not trying to fight for their business because we've been hit by a lot of protocols and it really is a big I could say sorry it's just allowing to see persons with disability trying to fend for themselves here. And my solution to that would just to ask if the ministry could also look into like Elizabeth was just saying cash initiatives just to help out micro businesses in terms of what's been happening in terms of COVID-19. And yeah, but for me it's been a rough road, and it's still a rough road. We could see a lot of help being pushed out to business owners, also persons with disabilities. I mean, 13.7% of the population here in Fiji are persons with disabilities. That's we're looking at 131,595 people, and that's a huge number. So my solution to that is just to ask the ministry, MCTTT, to also just help look out and look for persons with disability that are actually facing really hard times, because the thing that's happening right now is people are moving into more humanitarian aid because they need to feed their families, they need to feed themselves. So I think I will just end it there, and we'll wait for question and answers. And yeah, Naka.
Thank you. Bulavinaka, everyone. My name is Sachiko Soro. I'm the interim chairperson for the Fiji Islands Dance Association, which represents 22 dance companies and about 400 professional dancers in Fiji. We collected some information from the dance companies in regards to presenting the challenges and also some proposed solutions in regards to the COVID-19 protocols that have been implemented by MCTTT. So I'd just like to outline some of the challenges we are facing and some of the proposed solutions. So the performing arts industry is directly dependent on the ability of people to gather. So if there's no gatherings allowed, our business cannot operate. And we are directly dependent also, well, a lot of our companies are also directly dependent on tourism industry. So our stakeholders would really love to see the opening of borders as fast as possible, which means that we need the health situation to be contained as fast as possible. So whether that is a lockdown for 14 days or the focus on the vaccine rollout, either way, we'd love to know clearly like what the strategy is from the ministry so that we are able to prepare ourselves how we need to prepare our businesses to last before borders opens and gatherings are able to start again. also because, and if there is a lockdown or no gatherings, we need to be able to support our dancers through this time. So one of the solutions that we came up with is possibly channeling some of the money that's currently being paid via FMPF to employees, if we can so businesses are able to pay their employees to do some work at home, so that also the businesses don't collapse and the employees can still receive some funds, because I know that FMPF is paying out some money. So perhaps there could be a way that some of that money could be channeled through SMEs that directly employ skilled workers, so that they still have a job to go back to once the pandemic is under control. So that's our first challenge. The second challenge is, because of the lack of the ability to gather and perform, many of the dance companies are moving to digital platforms. So they're teaching dance classes online. And the issue has become that it's very hard to transact digitally in Fiji. So there's a lot of constraints in regards to e-commerce. So some dance companies, you pay direct into their bank account, and some via M-Paisa. So the issue is to get money in and out of M-Paisa and the bank account, you actually have to physically go to a Vodafone outlet to do that. And that poses a great health risk, because there's always a long lines there and a lot of people. So what we propose, the solution is possibly, if the ministry can talk to RBF and the banks, for there to be a way to transact between M-Paisa, MyCash and their bank accounts and vice versa. And if we can have some access to really affordable, accessible e-commerce solutions, that enables a lot of service-based companies, such as dance companies or musicians or anyone, or even visual artists, to be able to sell work overseas, to export their products, and for people to pay for it from overseas. At the moment, the startup costs are prohibitive, and it's very hard to access e-commerce platforms. So that would be very helpful if we could come up with some e-commerce solutions. And the last challenge that we're sort of facing is like a lack of a clear strategy for us to be able to prepare ourselves. So even if the ministry communicates like, this is strategy A, this is strategy B, this is strategy C for like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, the next year, the next 3 years, just so we have some idea of what the long-term plan is, and we'll work around it. Like whatever the ministry tells us to do, we'll adapt and we'll change, and we'll do our best to work alongside you. But it's really hard if we don't know what the plan is, you know? So, and we're so grateful to be brought to the table today, because it's so awesome to be able to start this dialogue so that we feel like we're included in the discussion. So we're really grateful for that. Yeah, so that communication of strategy would be so helpful for us to plan. And thank you for taking our ideas on board. The next little idea that we had is for dance companies, musicians to work with the Ministry of Education. I know that there's a lot of homeschooling happening at the moment via television. You know, you could subcontract like each dance company 1 a week or something to pay the dance companies to teach classes so kids can do it at home. It helps for their holistic education and a way for them to build healthy habits which fight NCDs, and a way for them to start thinking creatively, because they're our next generation of innovators. That's all from me. Please contact me if you want to talk about this more, and I'll pass it on to my friend Amit, who just has one more thing to say. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting us to talk to you. We are very grateful to be a part of this conversation. Naka.
Thank you, Chico. And Abula guys, Amita Shunchand here. I own the businesses Masti Dance Group and Verbland Media, and I'm also representing Fiji with Sachiko and the Fiji Filmmakers Association. Now, just to add on to what my colleague Sachiko has said, as dance companies and audiovisual production houses, we are creators of entertaining and informative content, as well as educators and instructors in dance, fitness, healthy lifestyle, personality development, and children's holistic upbringing, being active and creative. Collectively, as the creative live gig industry of Fiji, we represent a multi-million-dollar ecosystem, which is now absolutely stagnant, affecting thousands of Fijians as business owners and employees. With the ministry's pre-existing vision for strengthening the digital economy in Fiji, there is great opportunity in this crisis for our industry and supporting partners to venture into e-commerce by developing smart apps where every dance and content creator company could own their own apps and sell their craft as content and courses, not only to Fiji, but also bring in foreign exchange through our patrons around the world. We ask the ministry for incentives and donor support to enable the development and marketing of such apps. With all our revenue streams halted due to all the COVID protocols, we are in no financial position to do this ourselves. Being able to sell our craft online now is a short and a long-term solution we need MCTTT's help with. I'd also like to mention that the government's Walisi platform already has the mechanism to execute such support in the immediate interim, until which time such apps are developed to own by individual companies. I'd appreciate the ministry's eagerness to further dialogue with our association to bring to life our mutual vision of a vibrant digital and e-commerce economy in Fiji. Thank you.
Edward, looks like it's my turn. I've been unmuted. Bula, everybody. And firstly, a big thank you to the organizers of this online discussion for making it happen. My name is Moy Bentley Fisher, and together with my husband, we own and operate Mana Coffee, a cafe and kava bar at Selborne Street, and a cafe inside the mobile service station on Victoria Parade. Today, my colleague and I, Max Wahid, we're representing the Fiji Social Media Entrepreneurs Viber group that has a membership of 257. This group interacts daily on various matters, and we collaborate at many levels, including community donations, inter-business collaboration, and now more than ever before, in helping each other through very difficult times. We're also an extremely inclusive group, so we're not just a bunch of loud business owners complaining. We also have representatives from MCTTT, FNPF, Revenue and Customs, the Reserve Bank in the room, so that they can all hear us complaining. But in all seriousness, we're a group of entrepreneurs that are used to just getting things done. Our businesses are relatively small, so we can adjust, we can pivot and adapt quickly. We listen out to every single directive delivered by the authorities, as Sachiko mentioned, in an effort to remain compliant. But this climate is certainly testing the best of us. As previous speakers have mentioned, and one of the two issues that I'd like to raise today is the one of cash flow. So that's our biggest and number one issue right now, probably for a business of any size. We can't afford to operate, we can't afford to pay our bills, we can't afford to employ our staff, we can't afford to pay our rent, utilities, whether classified as essential or non-essential under the protocols, we can't afford to open, we can't afford to close. So my second issue that I'd like to raise is specific to the industry in which my business operates. Takeaways only is killing us. The protocols around the restaurants and cafes being allowed to open is quite clear, that they are quite clear in my view. However, a poll of our members this week revealed some daunting statistics. When asked what percentage revenue drop restaurant and cafe owners within our group had experienced since the second wave hit, 71% of the respondents said their revenue had dropped by 75 to 99%. 25% of the respondents said their sales had dropped by 50 to 75%. And at this rate, 41% of the respondents said they could last another 6 months. 25% thought they could last a year, and 25% are considering closing right now. So I'd like to propose a solution that could address both these issues, at least for our industry. Let's open up with COVID-safe measures for outdoor and open area dining immediately, for restaurants, cafes, taverns, and bars, as it has been done in other countries that chose to open and drive vaccinations as the primary solution to the pandemic. This is clearly Fiji's approach, along with targeted lockdowns. They've done this in the UK. This is part of a phased approach taken by New Zealand and Australia in opening up again. They're doing this in Thailand, Germany, Malaysia, to name a few. COVID safe measures for outdoor dining could include all requirements currently in place, along with appropriate distancing of tables, continuously sanitizing the premises, maybe even showing proof of vaccination. And then let's plan for the next phase as we start flattening the curve, open up to indoor dining with similar COVID safe measures. I promise you, as business owners in need of cash flow and committed to COVID compliance, our restaurants, cafes, taverns, and bars will be safer to dine at than standing in crowds downtown in Suva, where social distancing and COVID safe measures are not always being followed. I will conclude by saying that we want to be a part of the solution. We're eager and willing to help. Our businesses are a connection to the grassroots because we are an avenue to our customers. Please allow us to be a part of Fiji's fight against COVID. Thank you, and over to you, Max.
Hi, thanks, Mue. Hi, everyone. I'll keep it short and sweet and realistic to what's happening on the ground. My name is Max Wahid. I'm a solo parent of 2 kids aged 11 and 5. I own and operate the Gym Shack in Nakasi and the Pigsty in Nosori with 509 full-time customers with a workforce of 4 staff. My challenges at the moment is firstly, we're deemed as high risk, and resonating fully what my friend Sachiko had stated earlier, there seems to be no strategy as to when I can reopen. I think that's the biggest challenge right now. I seem to be tunneling and digging through darkness right now with no light at the end of the tunnel. However, I've taken upon the liberty to see what US and UK has done and proven positively how they can reopen safely. And I'm more than happy to work on this and building upon this with MCTTT. The purpose for me was recently I did an online survey with each and every client of mine and every customer. And then a staggering 89.4% of my customers are wanting to safely return to gyms because it's no longer about physicality. It's all about mental well-being. And it's about creating that safe space for them so that they can come back. So I'm beseeching, with the decision makers present at the moment to be more inclusive to strengthening this further and seeing how we can safely reopen. My second, and again, reaffirming, resonating, galvanizing what Mue has said is cash flow. At the moment, I simply am crippled with rental commercial space that I'm paying at the moment for 2 locations. It just cannot go further. And I believe strongly that positive dialogues and influencing landlords to freezing rental payments is needed. And I understand that there's 2 sides of conversations that are needed, i.e. from the landlords and of course, as business owners. My second one is, and don't even get me started on this, is water authority and electricity bills. At the moment, you have EFL prancing around in town, cutting PowerPoints left, right, and center with no empathy at all, not even giving any leeway or extending or cushioning for repayment deadlines. And I think that is just bollocks. I'm sorry to say that, but we need to understand people's situation at the moment. My last one is, of course, again, and it's going to be highlighted numerous occasions over here with my other peers, is the deferment of loans and bank loans and so on and so forth. I understand Rakesh Ram at the Association of Banks Forum has extended this till September, but we need to be very authentic and very realistic that should businesses reopen again, we're not going to be able to bloody pay all our interest rates straight away. You need to look at this holistically. I can't open and repay everything straight away. You need a cushioning over there. You need to factor the end in mind as well. So before I conclude, I'm on the verge of closing my gyms right now and selling all my equipment at a massive, massive, massive loss. I cannot even over articulate this. But I am happy that this dialogue has started, but include us. Show me what's next. And I'm happy to bend backwards to showing you what we can do and the protocols and the measures. Thanks.
Thank you, Wahid, for your inputs. We're going to now go to Semi. I think I was representing the farmers. I saw him online a while ago. I think he's just returned from his farm. Semi, if you want to join us now and make your contribution. Thank you.
Great. Bula, everybody. This is Samuel Ottawa. Yeah, sorry, our water pump broke down, so I was kind of like carried away. Anyway, I sit in this forum, being nominated by IFED as representing the smallholder farmers, but I'm also one of the directors for our nonprofit organization called Rice Reef. So today, firstly, I will speak on behalf of the smallholder farmers. During the starting of COVID, one of the things that that we've noticed is a surplus of crops and food that has been circulated within our local markets, but with very limited buying power around. The option that is starting to be clear, in despite of the lockdown and all of this closure of business, the agriculture import contains to continue to move slowly. And that is one of the things that has support many of our farmers to continue to produce and move product, whether it be for COVID response to containment area or to the export market, going overseas on various agriculture commodities that is demanded in Australia, New Zealand, and the rest of the world. So what the biggest challenge that we face as farmers is that it's the cost of moving goods, the cost of moving product across containment border, and also the cost of freight of moving product to customers overseas. And that is something that has not been factored in, although we have pivoted from the core market, such as the tourism market and the local market, and pivot into the export market. The struggle that we faced was the unforeseen spike in freight cost. Agriculture product is very sensitive in the sense that there are so many compliance that has to be approved by biosecurity. A lot of the times we pass and the requirements of the biosecurity, but the bottleneck continues to be the freight, the number of flights that transport cargoes in a week, and some of this produce are perishable items that has very limited shelf life. So those are the issues that they face. You may notice here in the West, one of the things we've learned last year, when the West was locked down, the export market dropped because of there was a heavily dependent on production from the central eastern part of Fiji, and what an opportunity that has come up during this pandemic time was for the West people to start to step up and shift from subsistence farming, then moving on to semi-commercial agriculture, targeting the product that are commodities that are demanded overseas. So our farmers have shifted into, since the lockdown, they've planted almost 20 acres of cassava that is needed. The market are required by exporters to move it overseas. So those are some of the pivoting, but the bottleneck comes to the freight cost, and that is always the issues that we face. And they're moving product across the border. The farm is a perfect place to create a bubble within those cluster farmers, and with a lot of empty plates, I think this is a great opportunity for us to establish a production base to be able to consistently supply fresh produce or other commodities that are needed elsewhere. Fiji is a hub in the Pacific, and it can be a shipping hub for for other agriculture produce globally. So those are the issue is the moving of produce across containment border. Now it has been relaxed a bit. You will see exporters buying cassava across the borders in Ba and in Singatoka. But once those produce are being bought, the next issue is the availability of flight and the cost of freight to move things across. So the solution, I think, what I can ask for support is to support the farmers, for those that have pivoted, for those that have now taken farming as a career after as an impact of COVID, but to be supported to not just to be a backyard farming or subsistence farming, but to be supported to be semi-commercial farming. And this takes a lot of technical support and financial support in whatever way. For cassava, 8 months from now, a farmer with 1 acre would be able to produce 1 container of cassava that is, on average, if it's 60 cents a kg, it can earn 12,000 in 8 months from now. But it needs the support because there's a lot of steep learning curve a farmer will have to face at this initial stage. And I want to touch briefly on my other hat as I am a director for Rise Beyond the Reef. Same thing too. After the COVID, we pivoted into e-commerce and start to sell our product online. But then again, a bottleneck is the shipping. The capacity for our local post office to carry shipment every day, even 30 parcels to be sent a day, that has really pushed through their limit of production in a day. And the rates with DHL and other shipping agents may be high. Our only option is Post Fiji. I'm not saying for Post Fiji is the bottleneck. I need the government support to support Post Fiji to maintain the efficiency in moving things product and also increase the capacity of what they can supply. That is the issues that I can raise from my role today as a representative of farmers and also our organization, Rise Beyond the Reef. Thank you.
Thank you, Simi, for your contributions. We now give the floor to WebC for their contribution. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you. My name is Esteta, and a very good afternoon to you all. I'm here on the capacity of chairwoman for the Women Entrepreneurs Business Council under the Fiji Commerce and Employers Federation. I believe a lot has been said regarding the subject matter that we're talking about this afternoon. So I'll just reiterate a few challenges and then proposed solutions on behalf of the WebC members. First and foremost is just we seek a clear communication and a timely response from the Ministry of Commerce and Trade and Tourism, or MCTTT. Our members are saying that they send emails, they send, or even telephone, they are not getting the timely response. So our proposed solutions is probably, try and get to improve the service delivery, to maybe get some extra lines, communication lines from telecom or Vodafone, or maybe use expert call center staff because they're very good at that. We're just seeking assistance there if we can get timely response when we ask a question or when we require clarification or inquire regarding business. The other one is, as been said before, the loss of business is greatly impacted on the cash flow of the business, especially if they're micro and women-owned businesses. Ability to pay the wages and bills, it's a big ask at the moment, and the ability to remain open. So we're asking, as a proposed solution, if they can look at discounted on utility bills, because at the end of the day, we are not making money, but we are still required to pay the utility bill. So we're seeking some sort of assistance in that space. And also the commercial rent and the loan interest. Some of the entrepreneurs have loaned from various financial institutions. The other alarming cost that we are paying for some of our members are the freight cost. It's killing us. I would like to give an example. I will not name the freight company, but I personally assisting some informal sector, the women up in Ndrobuta, in Navosa, and I have to send 20 kilos of Yangona growth to Dubai. That costs us about $1,400. And the freight company that we use charge us $1,200. So we're asking again, MCTTT, if we can look at the freight companies to have mercy on our members when they want to send staff abroad for their business purpose. I think the transportation of staff to and from work has been covered by Watson, or the first speaker. The other challenge that we have is we ask for temporary pass to allow the minimum staff at least to work from warehouses if we have to do online selling. So we are proposing that members can use public taxis or hire minibuses just for staff rather than going into the big public transport. The other one is just the mixed and confused messages that we are receiving from the regulators. I mean, now we are looking at the regulators to help us to ease the going back into business. But at the moment, we feel that we are getting some mixed messages and confused messages as well. So we would like to propose that, if the regulators can speak amongst themselves and then say, okay, this is the way forward, whether we just liaise directly with Ministry of Health or whether we go directly to Ministry of Commerce and Trade and Tourism, what we're doing now. So that's what we're asking, if we can get that clear process and a clear contact person that we need to contact with. And the other one is, I would like to ask that let's open our mind, and ask help from our big brothers like Australia and New Zealand. They went through this wave of COVID as well, and they handle it well. I mean, I'm not saying that we're not handling it well, but we can learn a lot from them. They've gone back to business. So if we can get some hints and tips on how to handle this COVID-19 wave, that would be also great. The other one is if lockdown is the answer, total lockdown, like how New Zealand did it, then on behalf of my members, I'm saying we are willing to go with that because we feel we'll sacrifice now for a long-term gain. So we are willing to do that. So all I'm saying to the ministry and to the regulators and the policy makers, we are here to work with you. Please include us as well in the discussion. And then, we're all in this together. I've got Nikita, the other WebC member. She's also present if she'd like to add on a bit in addition to what I've just said. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Iseta, for all your advice and feedback regarding the WebC representation. My name is Nikita Irvin, and I am a small business owner of Tasty Island Treats. And I'm here as well wearing my WebC hat. I think everyone has pretty much covered many of the challenges that we are currently facing, but just sort of what hasn't been said yet is we've got a lot of commercial representation of business owners here, but we're sort of also have to be aware that there is a huge informal sector, a lot of women who run informal businesses that depend on markets for their livelihoods. So that's one of the challenges right now that we're facing, is just not having access to those markets. And maybe a solution going forward is to have COVID safety protocols implemented so that we can open up the markets again, especially if they're outside and they're in open air. I don't really see any issues if we do adhere to safety protocols. And I think everything else that I've had on my mind has been said already. I guess the big pending thing for me is rent and making sure that, you know, landlords, are landlords even considered an essential business? Should they be charging, you know, SMEs rent? I'm in a situation right now where I have to move out of the space that I'm currently trying to set up because I can't pay my rent. And I know that I'm not alone in this. I know that, you know, I'm one of probably hundreds of SMEs who are in this situation. And as a micro small business, we can't necessarily recuperate our losses and go somewhere else and open up shop. So having some sort of framework in place to support small micro businesses to get back up on their feet, or just SMEs in general, is pretty. It is an essential part of getting things moving again if we are to go forward and get this economy running again. And I think, yeah, that's it for my part. Thanks so much.
Yo, Bulavenak everyone. Dennis of the Boa, owner operator of Namosi Retreat in the province of Namosi Islands, and representing the Duovata Collective Sustainable Tourism Group. Within line with the fight on climate change, protecting of our environment, and preserving of our culture and tradition. Our main challenge we want to raise to the ministry and to the government is just the lack of communication. No plans and no fast action to help us save our business from closing down. Yeah. When you're saving us, you're also saving the protection of our environment, from ocean to ridge, and the preserving of our culture and tradition, and that is our identity. From sailing onto the Utonialo and planting coral reef in Leliovia, to trekking with the Talano treks in the middle of Fiji, river rafting with the rivers Fiji, learning to build bilimbili and bures, climbing mountains in the interior of Fiji, chasing waterfalls and the Namosi Retreat. Yeah, that's us. At this moment, we just need a quick, fast action. There's nothing whatsoever in place. For us as a small tourism business, the COVID-19 protocols are a small issue in a much bigger, urgent issue of a survivability. For COVID protocols, we have the KFEG commitment, so we have already developed standards and are working towards compliance of all of our members to that. We got our CFC approval earlier this year. For us, the issues are bigger about the survival of the business and for our community in a large area. We need assistance. That's it. We need fast action plan, new assistance. We need everyone, get down to the grassroots. You're sitting up there, you need to get down to us and feel us, soon we're going to shut everything down. And, there's a lot to lose on this, people's lives, have been taken very likely, and it's painful, The Duovata Collective has come up with urgent keys to address. And one of the, first of all, to recognize us, feel our pain, feel where we at now, There's no one there to hear us, no one to give us a plan, to help us, show us the way. No one whatsoever, We need you to get down here, get down to our level and feel us. you know, we ask you to like put on hold all government fees and leases, extended loan terms, and force the banks, engage with the banks to, you know, to help us, you know, put on hold payments and fees and stuff like this, you know. Channel FNPF to the employers so they can retain their staff into help, getting them to do maintenance, landscaping and all this. You know, I'm stuck in Suva, personally, I'm stuck in Suva for 7, going on to 8 weeks, you know, and I haven't been to the retreat in Namosi. I've been told by phone call that I can't get out from this containment area. My place is sitting there. No one is looking after it. No one is maintaining it. You know, maybe the mongoose are having a play and a party through the big grass that is growing. No one's cutting it. You know, it hurts me personally so bad. And, you know, you guys should take it seriously, you know, and people's lives and families have been put under stress, a lot of stress and everything, you know. You know, another request that we are putting over the Dovada is to roll over all licensing payments and fees, you know, from 2021, roll it over to 2022 for no license fees and all sorts, you know. You gotta like step in. We need to work together, you know, to help us survive. It's all about survivability. It's, you know, it's not easy, you know. Another one that we've put in place as well is like to have a clear message to development partners that tourism operators can be implementers of environmental programs to program us into project designs, etc. You know, clear messaging to the development sector, to contract tourism sector to deliver service wherever possible, and these logistic workshops, etc. You know, into vaccine rollout as well and transport and everything. You know, we thank you. We thank the support of the Fiji tourism. You know, around the Care Fiji commitment. You know, they've done a lot, especially to us. We've worked together with them, and you know, they provided service that we need. You know. And we stand ready to operate at the highest standards of COVID compliance. And we hope, the Dovada Collective, we hope that the government and the ministry can take on board all these ideas from all the members and everyone that has spoken today. You know, and just please don't sleep on it, act on it. We need a full action now. Otherwise, we're going to close down. And you know, this is serious. People's lives have been drawn to this, you know, and it affects me really bad. And I hope you guys do something about it, man. Come to our level and feel us, you know. I hope everyone, you know, I'm not offending anyone, but I hope we get all our messages to the government, you know, and for them to help us get off their high chairs, get down to us, to the grassroots level that hold our communities together, you know. We need to be tough on this. You know, there's no ifs or buts. You know, no more doing fancy meetings and all this. Get real. This is real challenge we face now. Thank you, everyone, man. I hope I didn't offend anyone. And that is just personal to me, what we're going through.
Thank you so much, Dan. You are the man. Thank you for saying exactly how we are all feeling and have been trying to pussyfoot around to get to the point. My name is Kim Beddoes. I'm the owner of Party and Events Fiji and Fiji Weddings. I'm here today representing the Fiji SME Business Owners Network. We have a network of 310 business owners throughout the country. And basically everything I wanted to say has already been said. The number one issue faced by all business owners is cash flow. We have had 8 weeks of no income. Yet, despite having no income, the bills still come efficiently. the bills from EFL still come efficiently. The bills from the bank still come efficiently. The bills continue to mount and we do not have the money to pay for it. It really is that simple. And the only solution is you, the government. Only you have the power to change this situation and save it. So the problem is clear. There are many problems, but the number one problem is cash flow. And the number one way the government can help us and can help us today, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, is you, the government, need to give a directive to utility providers preventing the disconnection of services for the duration of time that COVID-19 is in the community and up to 3 to 6 months after community transmission has been contained. Because once, well, hopefully we get to the point where it is contained, the next day we won't automatically, all of a sudden our bank accounts fill up and we've got money to pay bills. It will take us time to get back up on our feet. So government, it's simple. You need to give the directive to the utility companies today to stop disconnections. Just yesterday in Nandi, EFL was driving around Martin Town and disconnecting businesses' power. You know, it just angers us to no end. And I'm sorry if I'm coming across a bit negative here, but it angers us to no end because we are on our knees, we are on the ground, and EFL has no empathy. They come around and they disconnect without question, without care. You know, I would love, if you would like, I would love if all business owners can provide EFL with the bill for the huge amount of damage and damage to our items that have been lost through the constant and continuous power blackouts that we get all the time. So again, the answer is simple. Government, please, you need to give a directive to prevent the disconnecting of utility services. It must include a waiver of late payment fees by utility providers. These fees cannot be accrued to be paid later. For example, like is the situation with the banks. Yes, we are grateful to the banks that have given us 3-month holidays and 6-month holidays, but this situation has taken more than 12 months. And yet at the end of this situation, when it's time for us to begin repaying our mortgages, our debt, we have to pay at a higher rate than when, at a higher rate because it has been accumulating and we just can't, we don't have the income to. So again, utility bills and banks, the only people that can have the power to give them instructions is you, the government. So we plead with you to do it. In summary, because this, you know, everything, as you can hear, it's the same story with every single organization that has spoken today. I just want to finish off to say to the government that you're not alone. We are truly in this together. We are out of money. We are out of time. The businesses are all on the verge of collapse. We are literally 1 foot in the grave. But despite all of that, we are business owners. We are passionate. We are problem solvers. We think on our feet. We can pivot and we can change. We can change the direction that this country is going into in such a positive way. We are resilient. We are determined. We are hopeful. We are ready to work with government to find solutions. We are in this together. And please, let us work with you. Let us help you. Once again, on behalf of everyone that has spoken today, we greatly appreciate the fact that you've reached out to begin this dialogue. We hope we haven't offended you, but just trust that it's our passion, it's our livelihood, it's our business, it's our staff, it's our community. So thank you once again for the opportunity to voice our issues. We hope that this is the beginning of more to come, but I just would like to impress again the urgency. We don't have time to be talking and talking and talking for a few more weeks or a few more months. Businesses are going bankrupt and closing down today, tomorrow, next week. And so the sooner you act, the better. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the contributors this afternoon. And now I'd like to open the floor for any questions or contributions. We're going to go for 10 minutes, and then we're going to go back to Director MSME for his final feedback, and then the closing statement by the President of FCEF. So the floor is now open. Please raise your hand if you want to make a contribution. Thank you. Go ahead, Mua.
Oh, thanks. This is just a comment off the back of the call for communication. You know, my background is in corporate communications, and communications is very tightly tied to leadership. So, you know, effective communication, good communication really starts with a good decision, whether it's a good business decision or a good decision about, you know, it's connected to strategy. What I would like to see is my leadership. I want to see just the way that we are the heads of our companies. My staff are looking to me for guidance. I want to see mine. When Shaheen was the permanent secretary, was on one of the evening updates talking about private sector specific issues, that gave me great comfort. Then I didn't see him again. I would love to see that. Okay, since I still have the mic and no one's put their hand up, I also would like to suggest, and this was something discussed pre-last budget or just before last year's budget announcement, or perhaps after, but either way, it's to have an organization dedicated to support SMEs. So similar to legal aid, having an SME aid. Of sorts, an organization, because off the back of this, we're going to hurt harder, right? So we were just sort of recovering from last year's shocks. Some of us recovered, some not recovered at all. We're not going to be able to prioritize spend on accounting, for instance. We will probably need some legal advice. We'll need some strategy advice. If there was an entity somewhere, a Fiji-owned entity that perhaps donors might want to get behind, that could help to support us to survive beyond whatever's coming next, I think that would be of great value. Thank you, that's it.
Consulting, you have the floor.
Thanks, Edward. And I'm actually here not with my consulting hat on, although I am going to talk a little bit about that. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you so much, Danny, for representing Duavata and representing all of the emotions that many of us are feeling. As you know, we have personally, as many of you know, pivoted to the consulting side of our business. And what is infuriating in that process is that I am still talking to development partners who are not talking with the same urgency that we have spoken today. I am still in meetings where we are talking about GCF accreditation, or we're talking about something random that has nothing to deal with the current situation. And my plea, I guess, within this space is for any assistance that is coming from the development world at the moment, they require government to ask for that assistance. They cannot assist unless you ask them to assist. And while we have great development programs that are in the private sector and SME space, like MDF, BLP, that have been able to provide some level of support, there are much, much bigger sums of money coming into the country for conservation initiatives, for logistical support, for all sorts of different programs of support that could be contracting private sector operators that really need the support right now to be in those programs. And that message is not getting through to them. So we would just ask you as government to be our voice in those spaces and to make sure that that message is getting through loud and clear. So thank you so much for the time, Naka.
Maria Rova, then Pat, you have the floor.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? All right, so I'm wanting to bring up the issue of, it's related to the cash flow dilemma that most of us are in. And one of the extra pressures that has been added to that is the fact that this assistance coming out to our staff, even if it's in the form of their own savings at FNPF, has been so slow in being processed. So my staff all were forced to go on unpaid leave on the 19th of April. And we're talking about 22 artists that are working with us. We run an art studio in Nandi. And since then, they have been able to access one lockdown payment only of $220. Most of them are feeding not only their own immediate nuclear families, but an extended family as well. So we as a company, apart from having to look at all the additional layout that is involved in meeting the COVID safe protocols, have been involved in buying food vouchers basically for our staff and trying in small and bigger ways to help them keep going until we get to a point when it's safe to bring them back on. So just even if it, the fact that they are able to access another 2 lockdown FNPF payments, as of yesterday, they were able to apply, but we understand that the actual cash won't hit their accounts until next week. So the whole thing is just constantly delayed. It was already 2 weeks ago when the Prime Minister announced that that money would finally be made available to them. And then all the red tape, it seems like the sense of urgency by the people who are making the decisions and setting up the protocols is completely disconnected to the state of emergency here on the ground. And that's particularly in Nandi, where everyone who's had some sort of a safety net, some sort of family savings or business savings that they have been using to keep themselves going over the last 12 months have almost all, in all cases, have used that up. There is no safety buffer left. And then we are landed in this situation where it really is, what are families going to feed their children the next day and the next, and how are those electricity bills going to get paid, and so forth, and how is the rent, all the stress of negotiating with the landlords. So yes, that's just one point I want to make is we're here in direct touch with our employees. We are telling you there is a crisis on the ground, and we need to see our leaders to stop debating the budgets of the town councils from 5 years ago and solve this particular problem and help us to figure out.
Thank you, Maria. We will now move on to Pat because of time constraints, but please do provide your written submission on the link that we've provided on the chat. Pat, you have the floor.
Thanks, Edward. Just continuing on the thread that Marita had raised earlier, and this is something that we had in our kind of wish list. I hope you guys can read up on the finer details in the document I submitted. But mine is more a question around all of the support we've received in the last year or so for COVID recovery for small businesses, whether it's through development partners, donor agencies, or whatnot. It would be great to have some sort of transparency around where that has been channeled and what sort of impact it has had on small businesses, because I'm a small business owner and I fraternize with a lot of small businesses, but when we talk about it, none of us seem to have accessed it. And either there's like all this kind of red tape or circles of fire for us to jump through, but we're small businesses with them. We employ people less than 5, and you expect us to sit around for hours, like documenting and writing up things. So it's either that or trying to run a business. So I'd like to know, over the last 12 months, the COVID recovery support for small businesses, where has it gone? Do we have some case studies, some examples? And then leading from that, like how can the government perhaps develop some information sessions or packages for small businesses to learn how to access funding? Forget the GCF, we're talking about small grants here. I'm sure like $2,000 or $3,000 will go a long way for a small business owner to just try and cover the expenses they've incurred over the last 40 days. And then the other thing that I would like to raise is, where is the psychological support for small business owners? Like, okay, the Ministry of Health is very onto it when it comes to vaccine rollout and COVID safe protocols, but what about psychological support? Where can we access that? Is that an avenue that we could lean on our neighboring countries like Australia and New Zealand to seek some kind of support in, I don't know, like setting up like a call center, or even getting some of their experts in here to help deal with that, because it's going to impact a lot of people adversely. And the last thing we want to see is suicide rates increasing. A lot of people are not talking about what's really hurting them. So thank you, guys.
Chico, you have the floor.
Hi, sorry, just a very quick question to the ministry. We had a few dance companies that raised the question of work bubbles or rehearsal bubbles, or like developing COVID protocols, because the thing is we have all different kinds of businesses that have all different kinds of requirements. So like we was talking about restaurants in particular. So in dance companies overseas, they've had these where every dancer has a tape. It's 2 meter social distancing. There's no contact between people, masks sanitized and everything. So my question is, would the ministry be willing to accept proposals from industry representatives like the Fiji Islands Dance Association as to how we propose we could open our businesses fully? And they can say no or yes, but at least be open to talk with us about how we propose we might be able to open at half capacity and implementing our own COVID measures, if we can submit those proposals to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is an excellent time now to cross over to Faisal, Director MSME Fiji, to provide his sort of summary and way forward. And then we'll move on to Sandeep, the President of FCEF, for the closing remarks. So over to you, Director.
Thank you everybody for your wonderful feedback. Thank you for your speaking from your heart. I just want to reiterate that no offense taken. We understand that the dire situation that most of the MSMEs are in right now. That is why we, kind of open up this platform for those kind of real feedback that we want. We don't want sugar-coated feedback, especially in light of the policy development space. We need to know what's happening on the ground, and this is one of the many platforms, and I hope this kind of discussions continues. I've shared my emails and my number on the group. Feel free to just to share with your protocols. Coming back to what Sachiko said, yes, we are more than happy to receive your proposal and to see how dance groups can open up in a COVID safe manner. If it makes sense, then we can definitely consider it. But we must also understand that whilst opening up, it's the health agenda that remains the priority. Whilst we are, we do understand economic recovery is important, the health agenda remains the paramount, and that's why we are trying to strike a balance for now of health agenda versus economic recovery. And as you may see from extreme lockdowns, we are slowly opening things up. Just please bear with us. Before, for example, you would see there was a lot of border containment areas. Now that's opened up only to Lami to Nosori. Before, only essential business could open up. Now all business can open up outside the Suva Lami containment area. I mean, Suva Lami Nosori containment area. Bono level, everything can open up. So it's a phased approach. Yes, so there were some valid suggestions given early on while everybody spoke, in terms of the cash injections and in terms of your expenditures such as utilities, rent freeze, loans. This is probably an option time for you to make your submission, say, to Ministry of Economy, given that they are in the process of preparing the budget right now. So hopefully by end of June or July, they would be making an announcement, given that our budget year ends in July end. So that would be the right now, this would be a good time for you to make your submissions. Very relevant, very real. My mandate here was to discuss about the protocols, business recovery, but more than happy to also take up your concerns with the Ministry of Economy. In terms of the amendments to the protocols, such as transportation, and some non-negotiables, Fiji apps and smartphone. I'm sure this is something I will go back and talk to the relevant authorities and our people. Hopefully we can push, and we can. I can't promise anybody right now anything, but all I can do, at least make your voices heard. And that's something that as Director MSME, we are here to be your voice. We are here to help ensure the development of MSMEs in Fiji happen. And that is our key role, to facilitate and ensure that we are all in, and this is just to give that reassurance that we are all in together. We want to see you grow. We are here to stand by you, and hopefully we can get out of this situation altogether. But yeah, if you guys want to, Eddie's got my email and numbers. I've shared it earlier in the group. Feel free to drop me a call or message or email anytime, and we can take things forward. And hopefully, just to conclude, we can have more of such discussions going forward. Binaka.
Thank you, Director. And final remarks to close this session by the President of FCEF, Mr. Sandeep Chauhan.
Hi, everybody. Man, that was really, really passionate from all of you guys, and ladies. It just shows what's needed, what's required. Before I start off with my remarks, thank you, ILO. Thank you, MCTTT, for putting this together and for giving us all an avenue and an opportunity to discuss and talk about the issues on hand. Where do we start? Faisal, you've been there as a help for all of the businesses, whether they be MSMEs, medium or large corporates. So we appreciate the help. I do take heed, and we do take heed of the point you made that not everything stands or stays with MCTTT. I believe health also has a say in how businesses open up and what they do. And therefore, some of the protocols are probably more health oriented than business oriented or economic oriented. But in saying that, look, there's 3 pages of screens I see here. I don't think we need to go far and beyond what we have here in terms of coming up with ideas as to how we can strike a balance between health as well as the economic catastrophe that we have on hand. We all agree that health is paramount, but for a lot of times I can't help thinking that, do we concentrate on health or do we concentrate on the economic issue that we have on hand? Because for me, and a lot of times I've voiced this in terms of saying that it's either death by health or death by economic circumstances. And the economic circumstances probably hold more weight for me because every one person that is employed feeds 3 or 4 other mouths that they have with them, in some cases, perhaps a lot more than that. So we need to put that into perspective as well. Cash flow was brought up, cash reserves was brought up. It's the same for every business. I don't think anybody has envisaged such a circumstance, but you know what? It teaches us a lot, and I think we need to go back to our own businesses and rethink, and don't be afraid to ask for help, because if we talk to each other, we come up with ways in terms of how we can do things differently. The more people that I talk to, I come up with ideas or ways that we could be doing things differently in our own business so that we do see this period through. Faisal, I think one of the things that has come loud and clear are the penalties, and they're very harsh in terms of the $10,000 fine, as well as the fine in terms of 5 years imprisonment. But I can't help saying this, that, I think it becomes very easy for the government to place it back to the businesses and say, if somebody is going to do something wrong, the business will have to pay for it. In amongst all of this, I think the government also needs to realize that businesses need to operate. If they survive this period, they will grow and become better and pay taxes, which is what the government thrives off. Now, there's no reason why our people can't be held accountable. If I have an employee, and let's say I've got 20 employees, my time is not going to be spent chasing each and every one of them to say, where's your COVID protocol safety measure? The business will take ownership in terms of providing all the equipment or the PPEs that are required so that they operate safely. but we're not going to be teachers in kindergartens or schools where we stand behind the backside and say, well, have you put on your face mask? Are you 2 meters apart? If I can talk about our own business, what we've done is we've held every person accountable, in the sense that you're going to sign a document and you're going to be a part of this organization if you're going to follow all these protocols. But lo and behold, someone is going to do something silly, and they'll probably do it at a time when we're probably being audited. Now, is that fair on the business to pick up the tab for somebody not doing what they're supposed to be doing? So I think there needs to be ownership and responsibility on individuals rather than placing it back onto the businesses. Because I think if there are too many protocols or rules placed on businesses, for a lot of them, it's going to be easier to say, let's either scale down or just shut shop, because it becomes too difficult to operate. So that probably needs to look through as well. MSMEs make 60% of the business landscape, possibly more. Times are hard, they're even more difficult, but we all start off as MSMEs. We grow into our medium and large and multinationals only after we start off as MSMEs. So there's more emphasis for us to ensure that we nurture the businesses that are trying to survive this period. I heard Dan, and man, he was passionate. I could just feel him talk from his heart. He knew what he wanted. You could just feel like it's just heart-to-heart connection. But whilst he was talking, I couldn't help think, can we not have a system in place where if he wants to operate his ecotourism business, Namosi is safe, can we not get a tour operator on board and say, well, you've got bus, maybe fill it at 50% capacity. Namosi ecotourism is going to be open, and perhaps make it a COVID-free, safe retreat or something, where we look at ideas and say, well, bus leaving Suva on a Friday, comes back on a Sunday, and this is a resort that you can go to. I think these sorts of ideas need to be explored, how we can keep maintaining such small businesses or medium businesses operating through this difficult period, because then they look after the environment they're in, the people that are reliant on them to operate. And I'm sure there'll be thousands of other ideas that people come up with and say, yes, let's make this work if we are given the right approvals. So perhaps let's start talking along those lines and looking at those protocols. I like what Sachiko said in terms of FNPF ensuring that the funds are paid for by the business. Why haven't we thought of that before? Rather than relying on FNPF, we all pay our staff salaries on a weekly basis. The funds are held with us in trust. We can, like we submit a whitelist to FNPF, we can give a whitelist back to FNPF and say, the following employees have been paid their wages through FNPF for the week. And I think that will probably ensure that our employees are paid much quicker and have access to funds a lot quicker than through FNPF, because I'm sure they're just inundated with a lot of the paperwork or the processes that they've got and they've got to fulfill. So I'm sure businesses will take this on board and say, we will pay our people, and it can be deducted of the FNPF payments that are being made on a monthly basis. If there need to be guidelines around that, then let's look at it perhaps on a very quick basis rather than leaving it till too late, because the last thing we want is for civil unrest if people don't get fed. And I think we're getting very, very close to that. 8 weeks is a long time when people have not been paid or have been without jobs. And desperate times lead to desperate consequences as well. In terms of work bubbles, let's revisit. Let's look at how we can make it safe. I've just given an example about how resorts can open up, or how we can create safe passages between one town to another. And these sorts of things are already happening, where you've got flights being caught on a weekly basis, and buses are going from either Suva to Nandi, escorted by the cops or whatever it is, and not stopping anywhere else. So perhaps along similar models, but let's see how we can make that work. I see challenges ahead where vaccinations are going to be mandatory, or employers are going to make that mandatory, because on one hand, if we are saying we've got non-negotiable protocols in place, and then from the government's perspective, if we're not making vaccination a mandatory position, then businesses are going to say, well, hang on a minute, guys, what's happening here? Why are we sending contradictory messages out? So you're happy to penalize businesses that are not complying because somebody has suddenly got the virus and they didn't want to get vaccinated. So I think there's a lot of mixed messages going on. There needs to be a stand taken in terms of vaccination, and I think people are entitled to their own views and whether they want to get vaccinated or not. But at some point in time, a stand is going to be necessary. And if they don't get vaccinated, businesses are going to say, you don't have a job. Because there will be businesses out there that employ 500 or 1,000 people, and they wouldn't want to compromise the health of, say, 80 or 90% of the people that they've employed and who have got vaccinated for the 10 or 5% that don't want to get vaccinated. And I think these decisions, though hard, will have to be taken very, very quickly. We'll also have to come up with new methods of doing business. I don't know how long this virus or this entire pandemic is going to last. I would probably say at least for another few months, perhaps till November, until we get 85% or 90% of our population vaccinated. And that is by choice, I gather, and not by forcefully getting them vaccinated. So I'm hoping that 10% or more or less is going to be the number that doesn't want to get vaccinated. But yeah, there'll have to be new methods of doing business, and Fiji will have to be ready for it. I can't help thinking that with some of the ways we work, we're very slow. Answers are coming very, very slowly, and we'll have to fast track that. We can't rely on the old method of saying, well, we're working on it and it'll be with you tomorrow or the next week. Systems will need to be put in place, and I think various ministries will have to come on board and say, well, we'll have to pitch in and carry out the work. So as a starting point, this was a very good discussion method or platform, but I think let's keep this going. On behalf of FCEF, at the board level, we've been talking about a lot of these things. We're also putting together some seminars around safe opening or safe operations of businesses, etc. So for our members, we will be rolling that out. But look, I think let's start doing a lot more discussions, but I'd like to see this more than discussions. A lot of times we're guilty of talking about things and not seeing it through or carrying it through. I think our results will show, or we'll be honest to ourselves if we bring all of these ideas that we've spoken about to fruition and ensure that I'd love to say that all businesses or all MSMEs should survive this period, but my thing would be that we'd like to see as little casualties as possible. If we can save 100% of the businesses, let's go all out and do that. But let's start now. Let's put a concerted effort in terms of making sure that we offer help wherever we can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. I'm just stepping in for Edward. I think our time is up. I'd just like to thank the speakers and the contributors for today's dialogue. Much needed dialogue, I believe, for everyone. Thank you, MCTTT and ILO and Fiji Commerce and all the contributors that was present today. Thank you so much, Vinaka.
Thanks, Millie.